Assalamu alaikum, dear friends, and welcome to our Tuesday night Zoom session tonight with Shaykh Haytham Tamim. Everybody's welcome from all around the world. Thank you for tuning in. We are continuing with our special series, which is talking about the importance of chastity and the honor one receives from Allah if one keeps to that command of Allah. Something that is often forgotten in our day and age. But we started one episode already, which you can watch on Shaykh Haytham's YouTube channel if you've missed it. And now we're going to continue. And I really look forward to what Shaykh Haytham has to say today. Over to you, dear Shaykh. Bismillah. Let me spotlight you. There we go.
Thank you, Christiana. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وآله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما وعملا وفقها في الدين يا رب العالمين. وفقنا للعمل بما يرضيك عنا وإلى غيرك لا تكلنا. افتح أقفال قلوبنا بذكرك وألهمنا شكرك واجعلنا من أهل معرفتك ولا تجعلنا من الغافلين. تب علينا توبة نصوحا يا رب العالمين. فرج عن أمة سيدنا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم فرجا عاجلا غير آجل آمين. Yes, alhamdulillah, last time we have started this series. Probably it will take another session, more likely. So we started with chastity and honor, which is in Arabic al-afaf wal-haya, or sharaf, sometimes we might call it as well. So importance of chastity. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in the Quran, in the opening of Surah An-Nur, the importance of being chaste. In the opening of Surah, rather not An-Nur, and the opening of Surah Al-Mu'minun, Allah mentioned the importance of being a person of chastity. قد أفلح المؤمنون, and he called in the opening successful are the believers, and he described the believers in 10 verses. One of these 10 verses, or two of these 10 verses, Allah referred to the honorable, chaste believers. So it's part and parcel of our iman to be people of chastity. And accordingly, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made the Islamic system connected and protected. So meaning by connected, you won't find one ruling disconnected from other rulings. So you have a system that is functioning and synchronizing and working in harmony all together. So we discussed last time that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prohibits something, he creates around that prohibition many layers of protection. So as we are talking about chastity, the prohibition of zina, around the prohibition of zina, many layers of protection. So this is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَلَا تَقْرَبُوا الزِّنَا, and do not come near zina. He didn't say don't commit zina, although this is the ruling, don't commit zina, which is haram. But he used a different term. He said do not come near zina, because when you come near it, you can't but to fall into it. This is the human nature. Human nature is vulnerable, is very weak. And accordingly, if he is near the edge, more likely he will fall off the edge. So don't come near the edge, because easily you can fall off the edge. So Allah, out of his mercy, he wants to protect us. So this is why he did put different layers around any prohibition, be it zina, which is fornication or adultery, or be it around theft or killing or any of the grave sins. So we see, for instance, just to refresh your memory about quickly what we mentioned last time, we see, for instance, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioning these boundaries and layers of protection around a prohibition like zina. For that reason, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned in the hadith, it's like the very famous hadith in the 40 Nawawiyah, although Imam al-Tirmidhi narrated it, but it's well known in the 40 Nawawiyah if you want. The hadith of Nu'man bin Bashir radiallahu ta'ala anhu, where he says, سمعت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول الحلال بين والحرام بين. So Nu'man bin Bashir, one of the companions of Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam, he said that I've heard Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam saying, the halal is clear and the haram is clear. And between the two, there are matters that are doubtful. Yeah. And then, no, not many people know about the clarity of these doubts. So this is why, and then the hadith is saying here, so whoever leaves the doubtful matters, he's protecting his religion and he's protecting his honor. You know, one of the titles of the lecture is Chastity and Honor. So if you were to leave doubtful matters, you are indeed protecting your honor. And then the beauty of this very hadith, we can spend the whole session on this hadith, and it's a very important hadith. In this hadith, he's saying that whoever leaves the doubtful matters, he's protecting his religion, he's protecting his honor. Then accordingly, he will be safe. So when you do that, you will be safe. And whoever falls into doubtful matters, like going to the edge, like going around the haram, going around the prohibition, going around doubtful matters. Yes? You know, the curiosity killed the cat. Yes. You go around it and then you jump into it and then you harm yourself. So whoever leaves the doubtful matters, he's protecting his religion, his honor. Whoever is falling into these doubtful matters, then he soon will have fallen into the haram. And he gave an example. The Prophet ﷺ, he gave a very easy example to visualize. Just like someone grazes his animals around a sanctuary. Yeah, you know the shepherd, he has his flock and it's going everywhere, and wherever there is green grass and what have you, you see the flock is going and eating from it. Yeah, until you hit a farm of somebody and he has around this farm fences. But you know, sometimes some of these fences are not very strong enough, or some of the gaps might be in the fence, or something along these lines. So if you were to take your flock near that, the natural thing, what will happen? They will sneak from that gap and go into someone else's farm and graze into his land, which is unlawful for you and haram. And what happened? That you have left your flock near the edge, near the gap. And then you can't blame the animals for that. Yeah, you should be blamed yourself because you have driven them to that place. And this is exactly what Rasulullah is saying. Said, listen to the remainder of the hadith. Just like someone grazing his animals around the sanctuary, he would soon get into it. Indeed, for every king, there is a sanctuary. And indeed, Allah's sanctuary is what He made haram. So don't come near the haram, because your instinct, your desire, rather than your instinct, your desire, your whim, is like these animals who you cannot control. So when you get into the edge, it will drive you off the edge. So to be safe, Rasulullah is saying, do not go near the edge. And someone saying, no, I'm strong enough, I can control myself, you can't. You might probably sometime control yourself, but as long as you are near the haram, you are not immune from falling into the haram, because you can't control your whims and desires without these boundaries and layers of protection. It's like someone switching off his antiviruses. So he's saying, yeah, I'm an engineer, I understand how things work, I don't need this. Yeah, you can say this, but you are opening yourself for all sorts of troubles and problems. So this is what Rasulullah is warning us against, going near the edge. And the second layer, which we did talk about as well last time, is looking at the haram, looking at doubtful things, looking at things that are near the haram or haram itself. Yes? So this is why in Surah An-Nur, in Surah An-Nur, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did talk about controlling the gaze. So قل للمؤمنين يغضوا من أبصارهم, Allah says, tell the believing men to restrain their looks and to guard their privates. And tell the believing women to restrain their looks and guard their privates. See? Equal, addressing them equally, subhanahu wa ta'ala, that both should control themselves, both should refrain from going near the haram. And you can say, yeah, but just looking, it's not doing anything. Yeah, this is where the spark starts. And this is where it can make a big fire, this very spark. And we've seen what happened in California, yes? And Los Angeles, yeah? So don't allow this spark to burn your garden. So Allah, out of His mercy, He's telling us, control yourself. And this is why we have boundaries in place. And this is why, again and again, Allah repeated in the Quran, and the Prophet ﷺ repeated in the Hadith, تِلْكَ حُدُودُ اللَّهِ فَلَا تَقْرَبُوهَا. These are the limits set by Allah. Do not overstep them. For your own sake, do not overstep them. You can act as a reckless person. You might call yourself, rather than reckless, brave and strong, but in reality you are not. You might go jump over the fence, but it's not for your own good. Allah knows better than you and me. Yeah. And the other layers which Allah created around haram, which protecting us from falling into the haram, the protection around family, protection around children, protection around husband, protection around wife, protection around your reputation, which we call it the honor. So someone is attacking your reputation, he's attacking your honor. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says in his final speech in the farewell Hajj, he said sallallahu alaihi wasallam, إن دماءكم وأموالكم وأعراضكم حرام عليكم كحرمة يومكم هذا في شهركم هذا في بلدكم هذا. So he said, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Inna dima'akum, your blood.
عم تدرس زين؟
It means your life. So he's saying, alayhi salatu wasalam, your life, your money, your wealth, property, etc., under the, if you want, the wealth, your honor. These three things he mentioned, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and he repeated this in 3 or 4 different occasions during his farewell pilgrimage, alayhi salatu wasallam, Hajjat al-Wada. He said these 3 things are prohibited for you, like the prohibition or the sanctity of this very day, and this very city, in this very month. So he made multiple sanctity, one above the other, to tell the audience, to tell the ummah, don't break the barriers between you and the haram, because it will destroy you. It will destroy your community. It will destroy your people. So if you want to build harmonious, loving, and caring community, and protected and safe community, then you have to sanctify life. You have to sanctify people's properties and wealth. You have to sanctify people's honor. If you don't, then it will fire back on you. It will haunt you, not just harm others, it will harm you as well. So Rasulullah warned us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did warn us. In the opening of Surah An-Nur as well, Allah talks about the prohibition of zina and the punishment of those who commit zina as well. And verse number 4, actually, in Surah An-Nur, verse number 4, it says, وَالَّذِينَ يَرْمُونَ الْمُحْصَنَاتِ, and those who accuse chaste women and do not produce 4 witnesses, whip them, yes, 80 lashes, for just speaking, accusing without any evidence. To that extent, the honor of brothers and sisters and families is so sanctified. You might say, yeah, what, this is so harsh, whipping someone 80 lashes, and yeah, but destroying someone's reputation is not easy. Destroying, it's a character assassination, which we call it in today's terms. Character assassination, you have just assassinate him without killing him if you want. So yes, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did warn us from jumping over the boundaries and destroying these boundaries. And unfortunately, we see in today's world, there's a big business behind accusing others and fabricating stories or even spying on others. And we've seen recently the case of Prince Harry against the news and what have you. And he got willing, alhamdulillah, he did win the case against them, which is unprecedented, actually. It's the first time that happened like this. So you see, it's destroying someone's life, accusing and spying on him. Accordingly, you cannot invade someone's privacy. Yes, so I'm just going through these layers to show you when we go against the divine instructions from Allah and divine commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, see the consequences, the harm which creates in our community. Imagine if we are sticking to the boundaries and not breaking these boundaries. It's much safer it's much better, and it's giving peace and protection for everyone. But when we started breaking these boundaries and barriers, it's like breaking the floodgate, destroying the floodgate. And then later on, we discovered, oh, we are sinking now. Yeah. Wake up. You are sinking. Of course, you will sink because you have destroyed the flood gates. It's your fault. It's been in place for a certain reason. So Allah did protect the chastity of people, be it a man or a woman, be it a family, be it a young or an old, all the same. So there's a protection. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is teaching us how to stick to the boundaries for our own sake and giving us alternatives. Instead of going into the haram, there are many alternatives halal. Yes. For instance, regarding the alternative of zina, we have the only alternative here is marriage. And we did touch upon this last time, and then the recommendation of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam for those who can marry should marry because it protects them from haram and it protects their chastity and protect their honor. So yes, this is a recommendation from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I know sometimes people do ask this question: is it obligatory to marry? No, it's not. It's not an obligation to marry unless you can put 2-3 lines under this. Unless someone is very close to commit haram and he cannot control himself, then marriage becomes, in this instant, obligation, an obligation for him or her to marry. Yeah. Now, going to the details, it's case by case, but this is the general opinion among the scholars. And it's sometimes marriage is haram. Is it? Yeah, it's an exception, like the exception of the obligation of marriage. There's an exception here. It might be forbidden for someone to marry. If he knows that he has a temper and he is a very violent person and the like of it, and he cannot control himself, then he will harm somebody if he got married. Then he shouldn't marry. He shouldn't, because he will definitely, from his experience, he tried whatever techniques and training, but it didn't work. Yeah, then he shouldn't marry. And there are other cases, but this is just one scenario. And one of the beautiful terms which we have in Sharia, if Allah wants, or if Allah made something halal, He will facilitate the reasons to get into this halal. For instance, as we are talking about marriage, you know, marriage has many things. It's a package. It comes with many things. Probably the major thing is the financial burden. And this is why many people do refrain from marriage, because, yeah, I cannot afford it. It's too much. It's this, it's that, and it's a whole thing. But nevertheless, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as in the hadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, ثلاثة حق على الله عونهم. 3 types of people Allah promised to help. And when Allah promises something, He fulfills His promise. So 3 types of people He promised to help. Number 1, which is not in existence, but it used to be at that time of the Prophet ﷺ, the slave whose master has agreed to let him buy his freedom. In Arabic, we call him mukatab. So the mukatab, there's mukatab, there's a document, kitaba. This is why he's been mukatab. He made a document he signed a document or he agreed on a document to buy his freedom for a certain number. And then he goes and works. Allah promised that he will provide for this person to fulfill his contract. It's number one, which is not very relevant to us. But number two is the relevant one. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promised as well, as Rasulullah stated, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, the one who wants to marry. The moment you make the intention, Allah will provide for you. But have a sincere intention. If you have a sincere intention, Allah will provide for you from ways which you never expected. I tell you. I can tell you first-hand experience. And I came across this many times as well. And of course, we trust the promise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if you want Allah to increase your rizq and you are single, have the intention to marry. And believe me, Allah will provide for you from ways which you never expected. And it will be in abundance, inshallah ta'ala. So yes, when Allah creates, or when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes something halal, He facilitates the means to that halal. But you need to move forward. You need to activate your intention. I came across the other day Uber driver. And I was asking him, are you married? He said, no. And he's probably in his 30s, something. Yeah. And I've said, why? You should marry. He said, I've tried, but it's not working and this and that. And I've said, you know what? He said, everything is expensive. I cannot afford it. It's a huge burden, something along these lines. He's not a Muslim. And I've said, believe me, make the intention, be sincere, and Allah will provide for you. And he stopped and looked back at me and he said, yeah, I like this. You know what? Yeah, I will make the intention. I'll ask my mom. I will make the intention. Yeah, I believe this can happen. And subhanAllah, at the end of our journey, he took his shahada because he likes the Islamic concept. He was around Muslims for some time, and he has many Muslim friends and so on and so forth.
Oh, please invite him to the convert club.
Yeah, I did.
So funny. Amazing, mashallah.
So sincerity is the key issue. I felt he is sincere, but he needs the courage. So I've told him, be courageous, make the right intention, and Allah will help you. I can promise you, Allah will help you. But get the right intention. Make the right intention, the sincere intention, and Allah will help you. And this is the promise of Allah. That's it. Allah will never break his promise, subhanahu wa ta'ala. Accordingly, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as well advise us and ask us to protect our family. And this is why in Maqasid al-Sharia, the aims and objectives of the Sharia, yes, if you want to summarize the aims and objectives of Sharia, like Imam Shatibi mentioned and many other scholars, are 5. Aims and objectives of the Sharia are 5. Yeah. Protection of belief, number 1. Hifz ad-Din. Number 2, protection of life and nafs. Number 3, protection of lineage or family, if you want, in our terms. Number 4, protection of intellect. Number 5, protection of wealth. Yeah. So what does it mean, these 5? It summarizes the whole Sharia. It means the whole Sharia, yeah, rotates around these 5 things. We might add more from different understanding from different scholars. That's fine. But they agreed on these 5 plus. Yeah. So the majority of the rulings of the Sharia are to serve these 5 objectives: either the family, or wealth, or life, or religion, or intellect. And this is why if anyone invades the boundaries of these 5, there's a penalty. Yes. So for instance, there's a penalty for killing. There's a penalty for theft. There's a penalty for being drunk, because it's against the protection of intellect. When you are drunk, you destroy your intellect. You destroy your dignity as well. So there's punishment for anyone who goes against this. Yeah. So going to number 3, or it might be sometimes number 4, depends on the sequence, doesn't matter, but it's within the 5 maqasid of the Sharia. So protecting the family is one of the maqasid of Sharia, one of the aims and objectives of the Sharia. So Allah Azza wa Jal, in the opening of Surah An-Nisa, chapter 4 in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, يا أيها الذين آمنوا يا أيها الناس يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. So Allah is saying, all people, all mankind, be conscious of your Lord who created you from a single soul, created you from a male and a female, yes, من نفس واحدة, and created its mate from it, and propagated from them countless men and women, and revere Allah whom you ask about, and family relations. Allah is watchful over you. So you see here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is honoring the family. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did define what the family is. Yes, male and female and children. So this is the divine definition, if you want. And it was for a long time the definition of the family until 213-14, when we have a new definition for the family. And instead of having nuclear family, which is the structure of the nuclear family from father and mother and children, we have now, I went through this, around 9 different definitions, or different families, let me say. Single parent families, same-sex families, extended families, cohabiting couples, blended families, chosen families, foster families, families with multiple parents. That's it. So we have changed the definition of the family. And accordingly, we are breaking the boundaries. Then it's not safe for the community. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to stick to these boundaries because it's for our own sake. And in the hadith, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, خيركم خيركم لأهله وأنا خيركم لأهلي. The best among you are those who are best towards their family. And I am, i.e. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and I am the best of you to my family, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this shows us the importance of our family and the goodness which we have. It starts at home, should start at home, and then go from your home outside. But sometimes we have the good which we have, it's outside the family, it's not inside the family, which is completely wrong. And Allah Azza wa Jal as well talks about our responsibility towards our family. What is it? He says, يا أيها الذين آمنوا قوا أنفسكم وأهليكم نارا. O you who believe, protect yourself and your family from hellfire. So he's putting on our shoulders the responsibility of protecting ourselves and protecting our families from hellfire. This is the responsibility from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on our shoulders. And Rasulullah والسلام, in the very hadith, the authentic hadith, he says, كلكم راع وكلكم مسؤول عن رعيته. All of you is guardian, and he is responsible towards his family, those who are under his care. He is responsible, or she is responsible, as he elaborated sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the same hadith, that the man is responsible, and later he mentioned, and the woman is responsible, and the maid is responsible, yes, to protect your money and protect your property and so on. So the parents, their responsibility towards one another, their responsibility towards their children. So yes, it is our responsibility to look after our children. And accordingly, any harm, anything that might affect our children or our family and our honor, we have to work together to protect our family and our community. And this is why probably you did follow the news recently. They're talking about grooming and this and that, and they wanted to mention that it's a Muslim Pakistani thingy. But statistics, not from my side, I'm not saying this. This is coming from the police. The statistics says that 3.5% who are involved in this business of grooming are Pakistani, but 85% are white British. This is not my statistic, again. So I don't know why they are twisting and changing and playing this blame game. Yes, so, but nevertheless, the problem is in existence. So how to protect our children, how to protect ourselves, how to protect our families, how to protect our honor, it's our responsibility. Of course, everyone should do his homework. We as parents, as families, and the government as the responsible for the citizens. And accordingly, we see that how do we tackle this issue? There are some steps which I will, inshallah, share with you, which we should go through it and try our best to protect ourselves and our families. Number one, we need to educate our children about personal boundaries. Yes, and this is what Islamically we have from very young age. We have the concept of awra. We say this is awra. Yes, this is haram. You don't show this to anybody, etc. And then you have the dress code, what to wear, what not to wear. Yes, things that show the beauty of the body, things that show the details of the body is not allowed. Yes, especially if they are in they might be 6, 7, yes, underage, I understand, but we train them from very young age that this is aura and you shouldn't show your aura to anybody. No one should touch your aura, this, that, and the other, in the very simple language that they can understand. Yes. So setting the boundaries, teaching them about morality and modesty, which is part of our religion. We did talk about haya in one full session. So haya, part of our education and teaching to our children, we teach them haya. What is haya? And what is modesty? And what is the aura? Yeah. Again, in a very simple language that suits their understanding, that this should be covered and the importance of privacy and protection.
You say the English term for haya?
Modesty, you can say, probably. And then we need to teach our children as well that they have the right to say no to any form of physical contact that makes them uncomfortable. And teach them to be courageous to say no, even if it was from a relative. And unfortunately, from statistics, the child abuse and sexual abuse, it comes, the majority of it comes from family. There are many cases, and in some cultures, it's normalized, unfortunately. I came across many stories that, yeah, it's in our family, and then don't make a big fuss. What don't make a big fuss? What's wrong with you guys? So yes, in some communities, it's normalized. No, this is not normal. This is haram, and sticking to the boundaries of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the solution. So we need to train our children from a very young age and look after them. Have an open communication with your children. Again, depends on their age, depends on their understanding, but the Islamic teaching teaches us that we need to teach our children from a very young age everything. Yes. And their protection is our priority. And Allah stated clearly in the Quran, protect yourself and your family. So protection is a responsibility. So we need to teach our children to speak. And we need to create as well a safe environment for them to speak and to feel comfortable to share with us their feelings and their experience. Just encourage them to talk without being judgmental. Listen to them. And then we need as well to teach our children about strangers and trusted people. So yeah, we need to distinguish between the strangers and the trusted people. And it's sometimes, again, it's a very awkward topic to talk about. Family members sometimes might get into child abuse. So we need to create a space in our family for the children to speak and to tell us what's going on. And monitoring them on a daily basis, having good relationship, having a trusted relationship, having an open discussion, having a space where they can feel comfortable to speak and not afraid, this will help us a lot to tackle this problem. Monitoring their online activities. Yeah, definitely many cases related to online activities. And we know the social media now, our children are more savvy than any of us. So we need to monitor the online activities. And by the way, many schools, even community centers, even the councils, etc., they have plenty of courses, short courses on safety online for your family, for your children, this, that, and the other. You can ask for it, you can search for it, you can find it easily and learn. Yes. In the schools, they do courses for the parents about online safety and how to monitor your children, how to protect your children, because it's a mutual responsibility. Yes, from our side, it's our responsibility to protect our children, but they have how many hours in the school? 8 hours almost, or something along these lines. So they see their teachers more than they see you, actually. So it's a mutual responsibility between us and the school. Alhamdulillah, I can't confirm 100% that all schools do this, but more likely it should be the case. So they teach the parents about safety online and so on. So we can learn how to protect our children online and having parental controls and privacy settings and so on and so forth. We should as well be clear about not sharing any photos, not talking to any strangers, only add to your group those whom you know, don't add anyone who's a stranger, this, that, and the other. And do not be surprised that your children can access some apps which is for adults. They can lie easily that they say, yeah, I've been born 1995. Who can monitor that they are not born 1995? They can, and many of them, if not all of them, does this. Yeah. How to recognize signs of grooming? Yeah. Again, it's our responsibility to have a good relationship with our children, to have trusted relationship with our children, and we should, parents know when there's something wrong with their children. So he's been now not himself, or she's been not herself, and that she's sitting too much silent, or she's there's something wrong. You feel, don't ignore your sense or sixth sense. Sometimes the parents' sixth sense, then you feel that there's something wrong with your children. Yeah. If you've seen that they are receiving gifts from strangers, adults, and so on, then there's something wrong. Red flag. If they become secretive, there's something wrong. So trust your instinct as a parent. And you can, at any time, if you feel there's something wrong and you don't know how to deal with it, you can ask for trusted support from the specialist in this area. And again, talking about modesty, haya is part of iman. So we need to teach our children modesty. It's part of our iman, and to protect ourselves, to protect our chastity and our private parts and our body and the rest of it. Yeah. So we should instill in our children respect for their body, and a trust of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that He is the creator of the body and He asked us to look after our body. And no one should touch this, the private parts, etc., and go through this easily with a very simple, easy language for them to understand. Again, depends on their age. The most important thing that we need to have a very strong relationship with our children. If your relationship is not good, they are not going to tell you. You will not be able to notice. So in improving the relationship with the children, it's for their protection. Spend quality time with your children, because this is where they can open up. If you are always busy on meeting, on offline and online and doing business, this, that, and the other, which I understand sometimes you need to do that, but you need to spend quality time with your children. Praise them, encourage them, boost their morale and self-esteem and confidence. This will encourage them to be closer and closer to you. And they will come to you in anything they feel uncomfortable. But if you are always criticizing them, always grumpy, always angry, always, they will not come near you. They will not tell you. The last person to be told is you. Yeah, because they are afraid to say anything to you. So be careful not to be that grumpy person. If you don't know how to deal with this, then you should learn. As Rasulullah ﷺ said, seeking knowledge is an obligation on every Muslim. Not just an obligation to seek knowledge, religious knowledge, as well knowledge that is useful. And this is so useful knowledge to know how to deal with this. Encourage them to stand against injustice. Encourage them to have a strong personality, to say no, and with respect. Yeah. By instilling in our children this if you want, strong personality, it will help them to protect themselves as well, and help them as well to understand what to do in circumstances where they cannot protect themselves, to go and report it, to immediately speak to someone whom they trust, identify those whom they can trust. Yes. Then they can go to the head teacher, for instance, or go to the to you or to the mom. Yeah. And the last thing probably here, we need to do continuous dua. We do our homework, whatever is possible, to protect ourselves, our families, our children. And we need to keep our supplication and dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect them and protect us and protect our honor and our families. And that's it from my side. I'll open the floor, inshallah ta'ala, for your questions. I know it's a very complicated topic and sensible, but let's see. If you have any question, inshallah, we can try and answer your questions.
Thank you, Ya Sheikh, for a really great talk again, as always. Yeah, there's probably a lot of peer pressure amongst young people, and that's to break these boundaries that we have. So difficult sometimes, especially for young people, I think, to adhere to.
The brainwashing technique is harming our children, because normalizing the haram. In cartoons, they created now normalization for haram. In advertisements, in you name it, online, offline, media, news, normalization of haram. This is so harmful.
Yeah, please, Hasib, you've got a question there. May I ask, does protecting our children's chastity apply equally for our sons and daughters?
Of course.
Or do we need to protect our daughters more so?
Both are vulnerable. Both are weak, and in the cases which we hear and we read about, plenty of boys and girls.
So your view is still get married, the younger the better, because if you are living otherwise, because you risk haram if you don't get married as soon as possible, basically. And then your idea or suggestion was to lower the barrier to marriage as a solution, to not make it unaffordable, to not make it impossible to be together, but
yeah, be reasonable,
be flexible,
don't be a very demanding person, because this will make you miss the boat. And in China, I was listening the other day, somebody wrote a new book under the title of The Leftovers. I couldn't get it. What is the leftovers? They are talking about women who missed the boat.
Oh,
They called them leftovers. I was, huh? It was on BBC 4, Radio 4. And it was a long discussion. This was last year or so. It's a big problem in China. We have a bit here, probably not a bit, but it's much bigger in China.
Oh, but you need to speak to the men. Why aren't they marrying the single women who are there? Those are probably the best ones. And they don't realize, they all look for really young ones who are brats, whatever. Not very wise. So you see, you need to speak to the men about it as well.
From statistics point of view, we have less men than women in the world.
Yeah.
So we have more women than men. And this is why you have many cases that you do have that what they call leftovers, which I don't know what to call in English. Unmarried women.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very difficult. I mean, Prophet Muhammad basically was such a good example. He married divorcees and leftovers, so to say. He married only leftovers, except for Aisha.
Sallallahu
Alaihi Wasallam. All right, Salam Sheikh. Should our children be able to talk to us about any subject area, for example, LGBT?
Of course, any topic. There's no taboo topic. Any topic. I remember one of our great speakers in Lebanon. I met him once, and I interviewed him actually about his upbringing. He's mashallah one of the top thinkers and Sharia scholars and what have you. So I wanted to know more, to dig deeper into how did you get into this level. He said, our father used to tell us when we were kids, you can come and discuss with me the haram, just like this. Any haram you want to discuss it with me, any topic you want to discuss it with me, come and discuss with me anything. And he said jokingly, I used to go to my dad and say, yeah, I just came to discuss with you some haram. And he will welcome and open any topic. And he taught me from very young age, there's no taboo topic. There's no topic I cannot discuss with him.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah. And I thought, wow, this is so impressive. Because usually we have the culture where if you don't know the answer, you need to shut them down, your children, and pretend that, yeah, this is the right thing. Because you don't want to say, yeah, to be honest with you, I don't know the answer. Let's find the answer together. Or give me some days, I will come up with the right answer for you. That's a good way to teach them that you don't know the answers sometimes or many times.
I would say especially, I mean, be especially open when they mention topics like LGBT and stuff like that, because it's a great opportunity to teach them about the Islamic principles and to just
we will cover this, inshallah, next
to firm them, to really to know what it is that God has said, Allah has said. So not to deviate and be brainwashed and think anything goes just because it's in the newspapers and in the movies and on the news and wherever you look.
Yeah.
Right. Any other thoughts? Any other questions? Any other comments? Sorry, we can't hear you very well. Can you say that again? Who was that? Let me see. All right. Did somebody, Khadija, did you just try to say something?
Oh, no, I think it's something is playing in my background.
All right, no problem. Well, very good food for thought. Let me just see. You had made one list and then we went into another list. I was wondering if we had exhausted the list.
No, we still have. I will cover them. It's
three types of people Allah promises to help. One was the slave who is being freed and wishes to work. The other one is the one who wants to be married. And the third one, or are there any other ones?
Who's the third one? The one who is in the battlefield.
The one who's in the battlefield.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. But would you say generally, if you make sincere intentions, then Allah might help you?
Yes, of course. Any good thing you made a sincere intention, Allah will help you, especially in this mentioned topic, because these are like key topics. Because marriage is one of the foundations of the family, and the foundation of the family is the foundation of the community. The foundation of the community is the foundation of the ummah. Yes. So it just goes in like ripple effect. You start with the family, yes. You go to the community, you go to the ummah.
Yes, makes sense. So Noor is asking for your email, please, to send you an email about an issue she's facing of Zoom, and I need support for the sake of Allah.
Okay, you can give her later, inshallah.
All right, fine. You text me if you don't mind, if that's possible. I'm sure you got so many requests for everything, but thank you. Barakallah feek. May Allah reward you for all the good work you do. So now a few more questions. What about the underage kids that are schools, that the schools are teaching about sex, please?
Yeah, I remember when I was probably 18, 19, one of my teachers, non-Muslim teacher, asked me this question. How do you deal with underage kids, and if they were to ask about sex, this, that, and the other? I've said, Islamically, we teach them from very young age all the rulings that related to purity and cleanliness and the menstruation and when you can pray, when you cannot pray. So yeah, we go to all these kind of things, that taboo issues, from very young age. So because it's part and parcel of our religion to tell her or him when you can pray, when you cannot pray, and what dreams, and when you become adult. Yes, how do you clean yourself? How do you purify yourself? So you need to go through these very, very embarrassing topics in somehow, but in a very nice and respectful manner.
Thank you. that schools are teaching. Yeah, I mean the underage kids that schools are teaching about sex. I think he probably also means nowadays they're teaching you about having same sex and all sorts of genders. Yeah, like 18 genders are the norm nowadays, etc. What do we do with underage kids who get taught this kind of material?
You have the right from legal point of view to opt out of these classes, but you need to see the curriculum which they have in the school and what they want to teach, and that before you get your kids into these classes, you have the right to check. And if you don't like it, if it's not in line with the modesty and etiquettes which we have, you can say, no, I will not allow my child to attend this session.
That's amazing. Thank you for that. That's very helpful. I hope that helped you over there, Al-Arani. And then Ahmed is saying, I was asked the person doesn't want to get married, asked by a person who doesn't want to get married, and cited some members of Islamic history.
There are many scholars actually, like Imam al-Nawawi himself, whom we refer to every now and then. He was single. He did die single. And one of our teachers, rahimahullah, Shaykh Abdul Fattah Abu Ghudda, he collected a book on the single scholars, al-ulama al-uzzab. In Arabic, single, we call him azib. So uzzab is plural of azib. So there's a book, I'm pretty sure it's been translated to English, The Single Scholars. It's a book. It talks about great scholars who were single. They did find that he cannot marry because he's so busy in the knowledge, and he will not be able to give his wife what she deserves from him. Attention, quality time, this, that, and the other. So he doesn't want to do injustice to her. So he said, I prefer to stay single because I have no time.
Interesting. Yes.
Yeah, Imam al-Nawawi himself, he used to have 17 classes a day. So he had no time.
That's good. That's good. Thank you. Well, lovely. Thank you so much, Sheikh. Unless there are any other breaking thoughts and comments, then we would now probably close with the beautiful.
Yeah, but one quick thing, related to this topic, like being single.
Yeah.
They did not stay single because they do not want to marry and follow the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. No, definitely not. They want to follow the sunnah, but they cannot fulfill the obligation of marriage or the duties of marriage because they are busy. So they didn't refrain from marriage because they want to go against the sunnah. No. These are two different things. In his lifetime, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there were some young companions. They made an oath together, that we will not marry. And they thought that this will make them closer to Allah. And the Prophet knew about this, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he came back and delivered a speech, and he said, I do marry, and marriage is my sunnah. Whoever disdains my sunnah, he is not one of me. So he made, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, very big statement that you cannot refrain from marriage because you think that this will make you closer to Allah. So marriage is my sunnah. So he wants to teach people that don't go to the extreme and don't make this the practice. The practice is you marry. Unless you have some circumstances, like some scholars, they felt that we can't have enough time for our wives, so we rather focus on knowledge. But these were very, very exceptional scholars. The majority, 99.99% of the scholars, they were married.
Good, thank you. Yeah, it's good there is some flexibility or options for, alternatives, or exceptions to the rule, put it that way. Yes. It's not regarded as haram or anything, but yeah, there you go. No, thank you for clarifying that. And Lamiz pointed out that here in English, obviously, we don't call women who are not married at a later age leftovers. We call them spinsters, or they could be widowers. You know, we wouldn't necessarily call them leftovers.
Yeah, I was referring to the book's title. This
Okay.
was the book title, and
Right.
yeah, I prefer probably to call them unmarried.
Yes,
Actually,
even spinster, I don't really like the word too much, but
actually, Assalamu alaikum. So I lived in China for a while, and if you are not married over 25, you are in that bracket.
Yeah, this was the main discussion in the book. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it used to be like that in Muslim cultures as well, didn't it? I mean, people used to have that opinion, but hopefully, I think that's now relaxed a little bit. And
Yeah, in the Pakistani culture as well, Ahmed, I think as well, beyond 25, it's questionable. And they will start, you know, talking about how do we get our daughter to marry, and they will even hire some people to find her somebody. Yeah, it's
well,
a very common thing.
yeah, but nowadays I think you know, with all the marriage sites and marriage events and even the mosque Manaar, by the way, has a Find My Spouse, a program run by one of our convert friends, Margarita, and you know, and it's there's a lot of efforts being done to provide and facilitate platforms and so on and so forth where people can meet each other, because it's very difficult to, you know, everybody's so busy working that's hard to, you know, and when you're a little bit older, you know, you socialize less automatically, and plus men and women are often segregated. When I used to go to all these talks and everything, it's, you know, how do you ever meet anybody if it's all segregated? So it's very hard. Therefore, these platforms and things are you know, one way. And there are a lot of you know, also older people who've already been divorced or are widowers, you know, also we shouldn't rule it out. I mean, you know, people in their 70s sometimes even get married. That's
So I can check just off that point about marriage, and I get this from family members. You can't find me the right one because I don't love them. It's like I've had that from a few family members, like my nieces and nephews. Oh, I don't want to marry so and so because I don't love them. And I personally, I don't have anything to say. I just look and go, that's your mom and dad's issue, not mine.
but you can't love them in advance of marrying them. How?
Yeah, so their culture, they've been immersed so much in the Western culture, is you love first, then get married. And I get that quite often with nephews and nieces who confide in me, and I'm going, well, you need to speak to your mom and dad. That's not nothing to do with me.
Yeah, unfortunately, we have some contamination, culture contamination.
Yeah, no, I would, as an uncle, I would explain, you know, that you can start loving them once you are with them. Then love develops. Isn't that the idea?
And this is why, Islamically, this is why you don't jump straight to the nikah, the contract. You have something which we call the khitbah period. Khitbah period, which is the engagement period, which is not in existence in the Asian community, Pakistani, Indian community. I know this for fact. But Islamically, there is something we call khitbah. And in the Quran, Allah has mentioned khitbah. Yes. And in the fiqh books, there is a chapter, full chapter, talks about khitbah, which is not marriage. It's before marriage. It's just, I usually call it testing period. So with the understanding of parents, that they know that they go and talk to each other, the parents and the boys and the girl, and then accordingly they have something they call it khitbah, and they have the right to meet and speak in the presence of probably a mahram or in a public space, depends. And it can take couple of months, it can take a few weeks, it can take up to sometimes 6 months, and then they can decide, no, he's not the person for me, or she is the right person, and so on. And there's no commitment as such until they decide. So of course, it's not recommended to prolong it, but as well not to rush it. So take your time. And of course, if she's a hijabi sister, she cannot take off her hijab because he's still non-mahram for her. He cannot touch her, he cannot kiss her, etc. It's still non-mahram. Yeah, but they can talk, they can explore the possibility of being together as a husband and wife. Yeah. So this is important. I know the first time I was talking about this issue in the Pakistani community, I can see their eyes are staring at me and saying, okay, well, what is this? You don't have this.
Well, I know in the Pakistani community is when they've made the initial engagement, it's the two families already married. And if you break it up then, you're in trouble.
Yeah, which is wrong. It's better sticking to the sunnah rather than sticking to the culture. So make things easy and don't make it difficult.
Yeah, exactly. Give people a chance.
It's better to be to break the engagement 10 times than to be divorced 10 times.
Yeah, or in a nightmare life. And
Yeah, so Islam is easy, but people makes it difficult because of their misunderstanding and high expectations and airy-fairy stuff.
I have, Sheikh, even been told that the khitbah period was haram. I've even been told to that level, and it's like, this is incredible.
Could you, Soraya asked, could you please give us the Quranic reference of the khitbah?
Yeah, I will give you, inshallah.
That would be very useful, I think. Yeah, a good thing.
I have delivered 3 courses on this issue.
Yes.
The tripod of happiness, and it's a dedicated course about marriage and prerequisite of marriage and preparation for marriage, and yeah, it's
so Ahmed, back to school.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Well, on that happy note, thank you very much, Ya Sheikh. Why don't we just close our beautiful session with a dua, and we look very much forward to welcoming you back for another 3rd edition of the topic Chastity and Honor. Thank you.
Inshallah ta'ala. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم تب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم. Ya Allah, enable us to follow the footsteps of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Ya Rabbil Alameen, bring tranquility and peace to our families, to our communities, Ya Allah. Be with our brothers and sisters in Palestine, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Ya Allah, Ya Allah, Ya Allah. Give them relief, give them support, give them peace, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Ya Arhamar Rahimin. Ya Allah, forgive us our sins, our shortcomings, our mistakes. Keep us on the straight path. Keep our offsprings on the straight path. Purify our hearts, our intentions, our actions, and make it purely for your sake, Ya Rabbal Alameen. Give us sincerity and ikhlas, and make us among people of taqwa. Salli wa sallim wa barik ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Ameen. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Jazakum Allah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you.
You're welcome.